one question because I can answer it, and also because it is kind of fundamental. There was a question: are these features available to all accounts, or do we need to buy something else to access these features? If so, what is the cost? And the answer is unequivocally that this is included in the platform. These are why Celigo is a great platform. Our error management functionality is considered one of the best in the industry, or the best in the industry, and the easiest to use. We're really proud of it. We want to make sure that everybody has the ability to use it to the best of their ability, and that's why Kevin and his team are here. So let's kind of get into the questions. Let me pull up the first one here. Well, the first one we had to answer: can you get notifications of Celigo errors in Slack current? So there was a lot of highlights there, but here's some detailed questions. So what if the record fails on the last import? Can you still automate a Slack message to a specific team?
So if I understand your question correctly, right? I had multiple steps, and if it fails on the last step, it depends on where you want to, like, you very easily you can write the post submit hook, which is just like 4 to 5 lines, and you can send your error message from wherever you want to, like from whichever step you want to send your error messages.
Okay, can you please, it says show more details, or I guess if you could explain more details on how the retry button on Slack or Teams will trigger a flow in Celigo to run.
That is a great question. So if I go to integrator IO over here, let me open this particular flow. So what I've done is, in the back end, what I've done is I've created one app, like Celigo app. That is what I've created. So let me go back just one step back over here. So over here, I've just created a script where I've just written a small script over here where I'm calling my callback ID over here. So this is where I'm creating all the buttons, and I'm deciding which fields I want to pass into my into the Slack channel. And in the backend, I've created Slack app, and over there I've provided a webhook. And so I've created a Slack app over there, and within Slack do have a very good documentation. But what I've done is I've just provided in the backend, I've just provided this particular link. So as soon as I click on retry error button, it will trigger the app will trigger this particular button. And then what I'm doing is I'm leveraging integrator IO error retry API over here based on the retry data keys to retry the error again.
And I guess one detail that I can add here, Kevin, is basically, so in Slack, you need absolutely to interact with the API of Slack. Slack's API, you need to have a bot created for your Slack, and install that bot and configure. So yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say, Kevin. So if you go to event subscriptions. So basically in event subscriptions, you can put the link to your webhook, and it will trigger that any event created on your Slack channel.
Yep. Either you can trigger based on the event, but I am triggering based on the button. So what I've done is instead of in the event, I've just included my integrator IO webhook link over here because I'm triggering based on the button. And this is the button which I passed in my script. So that is how I am triggering my.
All right. So for the next question, so for this Autumn AI to work, do we need to maintain Pinecone vector database with list of errors in it?
So if we're talking about the AI, I think the error management, or what Kevin explained at the beginning, it means that the machine learning and how classification is done, all that is included in the platform, right? You don't need the Pinecone vector database or anything. I think that Pinecone vector database was used in this use case here just to maintain kind of a vector. So to have like some kind of knowledge base. And this is something that our CTO, Scott Henderson, detailed in 2 videos where we are building with the platform. So we are using the iPaaS, which is Celigo's integrator IO, plus the AI large language models like OpenAI. The power of both platforms to create a knowledge base that can be used by the internal your internal resources to ask questions or answer questions. And in this use case, Kevin is using it to answer or give more details about the errors, right, Kevin? Do you have something to add?
Yeah. Yes, just one. Thank you, Yusuf. So just one point. So what I'm doing is I do have another flow in place where what I'm doing is, with the help of that particular flow, picking up all my, so in this channel, internal knowledge base, I have all my knowledge base. And what I'm doing is I do have another flow where I'm pulling all my conversations from this particular channel into my Pinecone vector database. And then the flow which I did demoed. So what I'm doing is, whenever there is an error, so what I'm doing is I'm picking this particular error message, doing some research in my Pinecone database, finding in case if I have anything similar to this particular error in my database, in my knowledge base, and then passing it to my Slack channel so that it can give certain error information right over here. So, and it doesn't have to be Pinecone, it can be anything. Wherever you are storing your internal knowledge base, you can pull it from there. And we do have connector available for OpenAI, so you can leverage OpenAI, and that is what I'm leveraging to get certain more information on this particular error.
Yes.
And like,
so go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, like Yusuf mentioned, there is a YouTube video available which will explain in detail like how you can create all this boot and how you can make it work using integrator IO.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, the vector database is used only to store the embeddings from your knowledge. Your knowledge can be documentation, internal documentation. It can be like Slack messages that you have in some threads, and those threads and knowledge, whatever the knowledge you have, can be embedded using OpenAI and then stored in vector database. And here we are just using that database to pull the meaningful information based on the error that we get.
Right. Will there be articles to cover these examples in the knowledge library? Examples setting up new flows to retry, resolve, or report out errors via the Celigo API?
So as of now, there are, like, we have Postman, we do have Postman collections and article which explain what error APIs are available. But definitely we'll take this point to our knowledge base team to see if we can have some example included in that particular article as well.
Just some context here for the retry, resolve, all the details related to the embedded features that we have in the error management that we have. We have articles covering that. And we have articles, as Kevin mentioned, covering the Celigo's API, REST API, and the error APIs. But I think it's a good point to have more detailed articles on how to build this type of flows to manage the errors.
Yeah, hey, Yusuf, just to kind of tag into that, I mean, let's not forget that we actually do have some updated training class inside Celigo University. So if you haven't gone back and taken a look, University is constantly being updated with new tips and tricks in it that would highly encourage going back and taking a look at some of that as well.
All right. Will this endpoint, this error endpoint, count against our organization's endpoint app allocation? I presume they mean the API.
For the API, no. If you are using in your flow the Celigo, so can you go back maybe, Kevin? It's better to show it visually. Yeah.
So what I can, let me show that. So over here, what you can do is like if there is any, okay, let me go back to my another flow. So over here, if I open this particular flow. So over here, what you can do is all these errors are exposed. So you can include errors right in the step, which will pull in all the orders into the next step if you want to. So you don't have to even create so if I close this, just over here, if I go to my first flow right over here, so I can pass all my error information right over here.
I think, Kevin, the question is more about when you are invoking some flow, you see the Celigo's endpoint.
Yep.
Yes.
So yep. Again, so over here, I'm just using this endpoint to get data URI, but you don't have to. In case if you're just looking for error specific information like classification, error retry key, or error message, you don't even need to use this additional step. It is just for fetching data URI, which is just available. For data URI, I had to use this particular step. But if you don't want to, you can just pass this. You can just include errors in any of your step in the response mapping, and it will pull all the errors detailed into the flow. And if you notice over here for my technical Slack channel, I'm not creating any additional step over here to fetch any error detail using integrator IO. So that is what I was highlighting.
Yeah, and to your point here, Kevin, and to respond to the question, no. If you are using Celigo's integrator IO, you see that step there. If you are using that connector, it's not counted against your endpoints, the organization's endpoint. The only ones that are counted against the organization's endpoint are like Slack. You will need Slack. You will need any endpoints or connectors to endpoints that you are using, like systems, ERP, CRMs, or whatever you are using.
All right. So is Celigo AI going to be available to users in the near future?
We'll definitely check with it is going to be available for the user, but when I will check, we need to check with our product team and we'll sort it.
So let's dig into that one a little bit more, right? I mean, AI already exists. It's already in our error management. We've already got some really interesting posts out there that talks about how you can leverage that with vector databases to do search bases on knowledge bases, respond that back into Slack. So the answer is AI already exists. Maybe this is a question for us to potentially to follow back up on and dig specifically into what the ask is.
So there was a question. Oh, you want to elaborate on Kevin's comment?
So so regarding the handlebar, right? If the question is specific to the handlebar, which I was demoing over here, so currently it is just for internal use, but definitely we'll check with our product team to get a timeline when it is going to be available for all the Celigo users. And yes, we do have plan to make it available for all the Celigo users.
Okay, how will this work with integration apps? For example, the the Celigo built Shopify NetSuite integration? Hell, I can answer it if you guys can. Error management works for everything.
It all depends, I guess, on what exactly we are looking at. I mean, if we are talking about the error management in general, like the retry, auto resolve, and everything, this is embedded and it's possible to be it's in there for the integration apps. But if we're talking about some customization where we are doing some error handling with Slack, that needs more like custom flows.
Good question. Can you control which auto-resolve features are enabled within the same flow? For example, can the duplicate error resolution be disabled while the auto-retry feature for intermittent connection failures remains active?
So you can build certain logic, like if you want to, but the simplest thing to do is like to directly over here in the branching, you can decide which classification you want to send to which channel, and then you can, based on like which classification you want this retry button to be available, or maybe while creating a script, you can build certain logic, like which classification you want that retry button to be available for and which you don't want to, because again, this classification information is available during the flow. So you can leverage this particular field and you can build your own logic.
Okay, I'm going to combine a couple of questions who are asking about notifications in different apps. What about Discord and what about Monday.com?
I can talk about Discord. I did some research about that, and Discord has also some bots, same as Slack. It has interaction with APIs. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter which communication channel you are using or app. If that app, the communication app, has APIs to interact with, we can build something to do that, because basically at the end we are just sending HTTP requests to some endpoint, and we're receiving some payload from a system to our integrator IO to do the processing in our flows. And for Discord, I took a look at the APIs, and they have this capabilities needed to do similar as for Slack.
Okay.
So what about Monday.com? What was
that's right. Forgot about that one.
Yeah. What was the question?
Same thing. Can you do those notifications in Monday.com?
Yeah, I guess it's the same answer. Monday.com has APIs, and we can send data to Monday.com and get back data from Monday.com. So it's just a matter of design, of how to design that.
Here's an interesting one. Why does triggering a different flow work better than branching? Then it is less clear. Just to finish it. Then it is less clear that the separate flow is a related action from the original flow.
So let me cover this particular question. So say for example, in your flow itself, you have multiple branches in place, right? Where you are exporting your customers from your marketplace into multiple ERPs, or if you are for EDI orders, you are sending that doc to different channels. In that case, if you create branching, then it will be a lot difficult to identify like which branches is causing certain error. So that was my point. Like if you have multiple branches, it is better to send the error message to write a post submit hook and send it to integrator IO webhook and then to your Slack channel. But if you just have one simple flow with just one flat structure, in that case, it makes sense to use branching. So yeah, depending on the scenario, one makes more sense over the other.
Here's a good question, which might clarify what's error management versus what's generating errors. Someone asked, how can we prevent generating redundant errors? There are too many redundant errors and it becomes too difficult to identify a real error where we have to take some action.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So I was just saying, like when you say redundant error, right? And that is, so the best way to avoid is like you don't have to work on duplicates. Error is auto resolve feature, which you can enable for each and every flow. So once you enable it, integrator IO itself will make sure that you're not working on any duplicate errors. If that answers your question.
Here's another good one. Could the error reporting and handling be integrated with Azure Insight?
I believe so, and there is no reason why it could not. We have already had Azure Service Bus, for example, integrated with the Integrator IO. We can send messages to Service Bus, and Service Bus is basically part of Azure ecosystem. So you can pass it, for example, to that queue, the Service Bus, Azure Service Bus, and the Azure Insights can pull from that queue, and I don't see any reason why it would not work.
Okay, we got one question left and 1 minute to answer it. In the dashboard, what does contains error and status shows as completed in red?
So if I go to my dashboard, so let me go back to my dashboard, and over here, so over here, open. Sorry, what is the question? Completed in red. Okay, so it means that there is an open error over here which needs some resolution. So there is one open error in this particular flow if it is in red.
I think there is also one use case. Sometimes, when you have an error, you have two options to handle that error. You can stop the flow, or basically you opt to proceed in the flow. So if you see it in red and you see the error and you see that it's completed, it means that we have that option where we choose to proceed with the flow, even if we get the error. And Kevin is showing that. This is why you see it with an error and it's completed as well. Hope that answers the question.
All right. And that we are at time. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and thank you all for being Celigo customers. I want to thank Kevin for an amazing presentation and set of demonstrations. Thanks to Yusuf and Kevin, the other Kevin, for helping us to answer everybody's questions.